the Mundelein Mayoral Virtual Election Forum. I'm Chris Hasso.
And I'm Yael Pikus.
And we will be your host for tonight's forum. Our moderators tonight will be...
My name is Alan Novotny, and I'm a junior here at Mundelein High School. My name is Shane Newman, and I am also a junior here at Mundelein High School.
My name is James Clay. I am, as everyone else, a junior in Mundelein High School. I'm James Brown. I'm also a junior.
On April 1st, you will have the opportunity to vote for the mayor of Mundelein. Tonight's forum is a chance for all of us to learn more about these candidates' stances on the issues and to help foster more engaged and educated citizens.
We want to make a special note that tonight is intended to be a classroom experience so that we may learn more about our candidates, so we want to establish some ground rules.
Tonight is not a political rally or a campaign event. This is our classroom, and we ask the candidates respect the time limits for questions as well as opening and closing statements. Please be respectful by not interrupting the other candidates while they are speaking. And as a reminder, this event is a forum to get to know the candidates, not a debate.
Second, each of the candidates will be allotted 2 minutes for an opening statement. This should be limited to the candidates' qualifications and reasons for seeking office. Afterward, we will begin asking questions that were both submitted from members of the community and developed by Mundelein High School's advanced placements, and government classes. The candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to each of these questions. If you agree with the previous candidate's comments on a question, do not feel obligated to use all 60 seconds for the question. Whichever candidate is asked the question first, they will have the option of an additional minute to respond to previous comments.
Questions will proceed in a random order determined by the students. We will then conclude the forum with a 90-second closing statement from each of the candidates in the reverse order as the opening statements. Our fellow AP Government classmate, Sam Baginski, will time your responses. When he displays a yellow card, you will have 15 seconds left. We ask that you stop your answer when Sam raises the red sign.
What do we call for it?
All good? Thank you, and we would now like to introduce the candidates running for mayor of Mundelein, Robin Meyer,
Okay, there it is. Now it's working. Thank you.
and Tim Wilson.
Thank you.
Robin Meyer, you will now have 2 minutes to make your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm Robin Meyer. And don't forget on your way out to pick up a flyer. On there are some key points and also information on how to get to my website. So thank you for the students for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity and the questions that you're bringing. And so primarily what I want to tell you is I work for you. I work for you so that you can live and be happy in the Mundelein that you want it to be. I am responsive to you in many different forms, in person, email, text message, phone, online, 7x24. I have 30 plus years of leadership experience, leadership jobs within the telecommunications industry. I was the AT&T representative at industry forums in North America and also working with federal and state legislative bodies. I want to address long-standing issues that have been here since I was a trustee when I first started in 2008. Some of those are McKinley Avenue, which has been deemed as too long and too complex and too expensive to do. I want to do it in 3 phases. We've got vacancies that were long-term vacancies. I'd like to address those. We have flooding issues that a previous board set aside money for, and then that money got diverted somewhere else. I want to bring that back and address the flooding issues that are in other parts of the town. I've gone to different businesses that have said they've never seen the mayor at all in their businesses. I'd like to change that. I plan on going to each business within my tenure as mayor. And I'm going to almost get the red flag, so I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Tim Wilson, you will now have 2 minutes to make your opening statement.
Sure. I kind of feel like I'm in my home court. I used to roam the hallways here, and yeah, athletic fields years ago. And quite frankly, I'm currently roaming the hallways. I've been an incubator mentor since the inception of the program 8 years ago. I'm the MHS Booster Club Alumni Chair. And then on any given Friday, you'll catch me, a couple of my brothers, my nephew, and my former classmate Dan Schaffernan. We work all the varsity football games, the chains. We don't run as fast as we used to, but we get it done, and we care deeply about the school. I believe in Mundelein's potential to be a strong, an even stronger, more vibrant place to live, work, and raise a family. My background is really, I'm in the food business, service business. Cut my teeth in Chicago, in the Pepsi system. I ran different facilities, large facilities, union contracts, union employees. I'm more of a people person. I like to be engaged, know what's going on. The reason I'm running for mayor is that I want to continue with what I believe is the smart growth and have responsible leadership, and really listening to residents and businesses on some of the needs. Robin listed a bunch of things that she wants to get done. I don't want to take all my time up and talk about it, but there's a lot of different issues in this community but for the most part, I'm very bullish on where we're at and where we're going in the future. I look at the last 4 years. Myself on the board, I'll hopefully have an opportunity to detail some of that, some of the accomplishments we've had as we continue tonight. But first of all, I want to thank all the AP students. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
You will now each have 60 seconds to answer each question. We will first have James Glassman.
This question is for Robin Meyer. How much of a priority should the village place on infrastructure improvements such as street repair, traffic congestion, and flood management?
Thank you. Well, that was part of my lead-in, is talking about some of our long-standing streets. That McKinley is one of them that has been an issue where it's too cost prohibitive to do the whole thing at once. Part of that of its width. And so I'd like to do that in 3 phases. In 3 phases, you can make it more economically feasible. There's flooding in different parts of the town, Wellington Park, some other areas. And when we took out the bond for the stormwater retention pond, we had extra money set aside to deal with other flooding areas in town. And so and that money, as I said, got redirected, and so I'd like to put it back. There are lots of other infrastructure projects. Some of them I've listed on my website, so please look at that.
Yeah, infrastructure. All it takes is money, right? If you look at some of the projects she brought up, McKinley's been on the books for years. It's very complicated. To do it in phases the way she'd like us to do is really not. It's cost prohibitive. This really doesn't make sense. If you look at our P&L. We work with three core budgets of money. It's property taxes, which we bring in about $12 million a year, sales tax, and then income tax. That's about $32 million. Infrastructure as a whole is a national problem. We should be spending, we have 110 miles of road in this community, 150 miles of water and sewer. We should be spending 10 or 15 million a year. We just don't have those kind of funds. So what we depend on is we've got a great director of public works, Eddie Boucher. He's very fiscally responsible and tries to stretch every tax dollar that he gets to make sure that every year in our road program that we're maximizing the funds that we have available against infrastructure.
Thank you. This next question will be asked by Jacob Arabadan.
Oh, I thought, don't I get to respond?
Oh, sorry, yes.
I did. All right, on the infrastructure question, back on McKinley, that I did talk to Adam Boucher, our director, and he did say that doing that in phases was more feasible and was more cost effective. versus trying to get grants for it, which we've tried and can't, and it's way too much to do in one budget, period, for roads in 1 year. So doing it in phases per our engineering group is viable.
This next question is for Tim Wilson. What will be your first policy act as mayor if you win the election?
Not necessarily a policy. It's really about keeping the momentum going. You know, really focus on some of the accomplishments we've had over the last 4 years. I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the southern corridor. It really started with the towns of Oak Creek. You look at the additional investment down there of that development, what that spurred in additional businesses. I mean, you look at that town line shopping center where the Jewel is. You know, we've had dozens of new businesses open up down there. And then the additional investment from Mundelein that spent $27 million in a new lab there. I look at creating an environment where it's going to spur investment and provide opportunities for other businesses to come to our community and be successful.
I look at, you know, when I first become mayor, one of the first things you need to do is really sit down with all the department heads, find out what they need, where they're going, have a dialogue with them, sit down with all the trustees, meet with the board members, talk to them, see what their needs are and some of that. Part of the next thing you need to do is start talking to our businesses and looking at, you know, what are the business needs, what are things that they need, where have we fallen short, where can we assist on providing support for our local businesses. So those are a variety of different things. Again, there's a whole bunch more that can be done, and you're kind of doing all of them at once. You're not doing them, in sequence. So you're doing them collaboratively more at one time. Thanks.
Yeah, what I see, you know, the difference between me and Robin is that I view Mundelein as a diamond, she views it as dust. If you look at a lot of the developments that we've put in place or have come to our community in the last 4 years, it's significant. Between Station 250, Clarendon College, which is going to break ground here in a couple months, Morris Station, that's a couple $100 million in investment in the community. I think that's one of the ways you can tell how healthy your community is. You go across the railroad tracks to Cardinal Square, that's another $80 million investment with buildings 1 and 2. And what doesn't get talked about a lot, those are carbon neutral buildings with solar panels on top and geothermal heating. The thing I'm most proud of is that we've had some individuals that live in our community that have invested and taken a risk. The guys at Tonality, you've got the Fenton family, and you've got the Bose family, and you've got Mary Ann down at the pub, all dropping millions of dollars within our community. That's good. That's a positive thing.
This next question is for Robin Meyer. Since you both are on the village board currently, what do you feel is your biggest accomplishment relating to your current position, and what is one thing looking back that you wish you could have changed or plan to change if you were elected mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Being on the board is really teamwork. There's no I in a board member. You're doing everything as a team, collectively and collaboratively. Part of where you shine is where you stand out is when you're in a negotiating committee. And if I was going to say anything of something that I wish had happened differently is the Old Village Hall Plaza, that building. The developer ended up getting a very good incentive agreement up front. He should have been in a TIF agreement. If he had been in a TIF agreement, he wouldn't have gotten any incentive or payback until after he had the building filled. Now he has no incentive because he's already received his money. He has no incentive to fill that. And so that's something that, while I voted against the incentive package, I wish that it had gone a different way.
The thing I'm most proud of is really the way I've been able to connect with staff. And it's really about setting the agenda as, at the end of the day, every municipal employee is a service provider for our businesses and residents. And, what I try to get across to everyone, from, Ken Zimmerman, sweeping the floors down to public works, whether it be the chiefs or whoever I run into, I want to treat them with respect, and I want them to treat our residents and businesses like they're our best customer. And so, you treat people the way you want them to treat others. Again, the thing that I'm so excited about is where we're going as a community. Our best days are still ahead of us here. I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now, but once all the dust settles and the emotions taken out of a lot of these equations, we're going to find solutions, and we're going to continue to keep things rolling.
Right, as a response, one of the things I'd like to point out is no way do I think this town is dust. I've been a trustee since 2007. I've run multiple times. No way would I be looking at that type of commitment and wanting to work for the village that much if I felt that way. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I want to be here. I want to help everybody. I also love this town. I've lived in multiple states, multiple cities, and I chose to live here, and I chose to stay here because I believe in our community and our town.
This question is for Tim Wilson. Mundelein is a very diverse community. How will you ensure that all community members feel included and represented in village decisions?
That's in my wheelhouse. I'm a people person, okay? I believe that you need to engage with everyone. And I don't know if he's still here, but we have a real famous person within our audience here. If you haven't been down to Los Perez supermarket, Sergio is just an innovator. He's a great addition to the community. But it all starts with going out and talking to people. We consider ourselves a welcoming community, and we are. And there's been a lot of struggles as of late, but you got to make yourself present in those different communities, to kind of put things at ease. Tell them you're there to support them. And I think that's what I'm good at. And I will continue that, unabashedly. I mean, I grew up in this town when it was called Mundelein. I wear that like a chip on my shoulder, and I will be just an advocate for this community.
When we look at inclusive, my daughter-in-law is Latino, my grandkids are Latino. It's part of the community I am always learning about. It's something that I'm not familiar with before she joined our life. And it's something, again, that I learn about all the time. She's starting a small business in the community. It hasn't always been easy to find a space to do that. So it's one of the things that she has also brought me people and said, hey, they need help. They don't understand how the village works. Will you help them connect with the right people? So it's an ongoing thing of inclusivity. Being inclusive, and it's one of the things that I work very hard on, even though I can't say that at the moment. I need a new crown.
This question is for Robin Meyer. Mundelein recently passed an ordinance stopping migrant bus drop-offs in the village. Could you explain your vote on that ordinance and how the village could be affected by recent changes in federal immigration policy?
Well, one of the things that the entire board basically was supportive of that primarily. It did pass. And part of that was safety. That you don't want some bus driver dropping somebody off at a random place, like, for example, the train station where there's nobody there to help them, there are no services there. They would kind of be abandoned in the middle of the town. So that's something that was more of a safety aspect. There are, a lot of controversy going on immigration. Basically, Mundelein follows the Illinois state law. And it's very important that everybody follows the state law. And if you don't do that, there's the potential that, you don't follow a law and you end up in jail. So there is a law and we will follow it.
She articulated that perfectly. That's really, that's one thing the board has been aligned on. It was a safety issue. And I think, it's about making sure that we're in that community and continue to build that trust.
This next question is for Tim Wilson. Recent elections have focused on the development of downtown Mundelein, but where do you consider to be downtown? And how can the village improve the area?
But, Jacob, that is a great question. I think that's really funny because really, I think we get too hung up on that, right? I try to tell people that we're doing nothing different than any other municipality in the general area. I look at us as kind of a mini Arlington Heights. In that Park Street, Seymour area, we're trying to create that kind of downtown feel with the open dining. If you look in the South Corridor, that's in Arlington Heights, that's that Route 12 with the jewels out of that corridor. I mean, we're just spread out. The downtown can be whatever people want it, but at the end of the day, I think there's nothing to get hung up on. There are a lot of good things going on, but it's going to be different. There's going to be different areas in our community.
Technically, it's supposed to be from 176 south to Cortland, kind of 45, a little bit on both sides, down past maybe Prospect, a little bit further than Prospect. Technically, that whole area, it's not connected well, and it's not real walkable at this point. And so right now, it's kind of being developed in little niche areas. You have the south area by Cortland Commons. You have Park Street, where you have a little niche over there. There's Plaza Circle, which is turning out to be different than we originally planned. But it's in different little niche areas, and hopefully as time goes on and we start pulling all those areas together, it will be more unified.
This question is for Robin Meyer. What is your plan to attract and retain businesses in Mundelein? Specifically, what can be done to attract new business revenue to areas with several vacant storefronts, such as the area where Village Hall used to reside, as well as the Mundelein Crossing Park?
That is more than 60 seconds. I have a couple different ideas, and one of them I talked to MCC, and I said, MCC, you're holding all these events. When people walk into these events, and a lot of people come from outside of our area, they should have a QR code or a sheet of paper that says, hey, now that you're here, here's some restaurants you could go to, here's some businesses you could go to. And so if you did something like that at the MCC events and village events, that's one thing. Another thing is talking to business owners and making sure that their process is that they can get permits quickly and that you support your local businesses. If you support your local businesses, they talk to other businesses and say, hey, come here because the people support you, the village supports you, and it's easy to deal with. And my time is up. And again, there is so much more that can be done on that, but not in 60 seconds.
My plan is simple. Keep the progress going that we're doing right now. When you run a business, it's all about the ability to create conversions. You need customers. For example, if you take Los Perez, once Flannery and Collins gets dug and completed, that whole area, there's 2,100 potential consumers that Sergio can convert. That's the reason you saw the expansion down at Tighthead. That's the reason you saw the guys at Zach and that crew at Tonality take a risk. Definitely more station and everything else that's going on downtown. That's why the Bose family taking a risk to expand. For us, to me, it's from the village. It's about creating an environment where you can attract businesses to creating an opportunity for them, for their customers. And that's been the plan for the last 4 years, and I think we've seen some of that success.
This is a question for Tim Wilson. This is a two-part question. In 2021, voter turnout across Lake County was approximately 14%, which we as government students and as well as future voters find that quite disappointing. Is this a sign that voters are satisfied with the status quo, or does it reflect voter apathy and voters feel that their vote won't make a difference? And then the second part to this question is, what actions has your campaign taken to increase voter turnout in this election?
That's a great question. You know, that's one of the things, especially in municipal elections. Turnout's always a big challenge, right? And she mentioned the two choices. You know, low voter turnout, everybody's happy. You know, but I think I'd like to get everybody involved in the process because I've stated, you know, numerous times, you know, I'd like you to vote for me, but at the end of the day, vote. And some of the things that we've done, or I've done, to try to drive some additional interest in the municipal election is, you can agree or disagree with Chris Boss. I did a podcast with him, and his main goal is to get more people involved. So he's done that. And I think it's just really, in any of your materials, when you're talking to people in groups, you know, you're going to pitch yourself as the candidate, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is to vote and be part of the process. Thank you.
Yeah, part of what you can do is just keep getting the message out to vote. People need to understand how important their local vote is. We're voting on your taxes. We're voting on your fees. We're voting on the developments. We're voting on what roads get fixed and what roads don't get fixed. Local elections are so important to you, and all we can do is continue to get that message across about how important it is to vote, what it means to you, knowing who you're voting for, knowing what they are and aren't going to do for you. That's just insurmountable. I mean, you just have to keep it up and keep getting the message out.
This question is for Robin Meyer. We know that this election has only two candidates, but many towns and villages across Chicago suburbs have moved towards ranked choice voting, where voters have the option to rank candidates in order of preference within their mayoral elections. Would you consider its implementation in Mundelein? As this is an outlier election, do you believe that ranked choice voting would be a better system to increase the representation of the will of the people within our election?
Could you repeat the second part? I couldn't hear that.
Would you consider its implementation in Mundelein, as this is an outlier election? Do you believe that ranked choice voting would be a better system to increase the representation of the people's will within our elections?
I think that in a village of our size with 31,000, give or take people, the way that we have elections now are probably the way that they should stay. I don't see a purpose for ranking in our area. We don't have aldermen. We aren't divided by neighborhoods. We're voting for our leaders as one village. So I would say leave it the way it is.
I would be a no. I have a lot of confidence in the people in this community. You know, they'll do the research and they'll make the choice. I just think it complicates things. I think we see some things at the state level that just cause some confusion out west. So I'm pretty confident that the current system we have in place is good enough for our community.
This question is for Tim Wilson. I am a biker. I bike both recreationally and to go to school during the warmer months. So my question is, what are your priorities for improving public safety on roads and sidewalks in Mundelein, both for drivers and for pedestrians?
You know what? That's a great question. I mean, a lot of that depends on, there's county bike paths, but I mean, I think in general, you know, I think the MPD does a great job as it relates to keeping our roads safe. You could put some more informational thing, but at the end of the day, it's falls on the responsibility, a lot of the responsibility falls on that given bike rider or that person that's jogging. You know, you got to keep your head on the swivel, you got to follow the traffic laws, and hopefully that the other vehicles will do the same. So I don't know that's, you know, what we're trying to do with some of the things downtown is really create more of a walkable area. You know, our walkability score is like a 38. Trustee Schwain gave me a reading assignment of walkable cities. So, you know, if you look at some of the more walkable and bikeable cities, we're below the par, but I think with some of the current developments and some of the plans, the Holly Street expansion that's going to include more bike paths, we're all going to be good things.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think this village board and past village boards have been very supportive of bike paths. We supported the 176 bike path improvement. As Trustee Wilson briefly mentioned, the Holly Street project, that has a bike path along it, and it will connect where the bike path ends at Carmel to where it pretty much picks up on the other side, on the west side of 45. So we're very cognizant of bike traffic and bike paths and walkability, and I think that, you know, there's always room for improvement, and you can always do more, but I think we have worked at it.
This question is for Robin Meyer. You're very active on social media, conveying issues involving the village board. As mayor, what additional steps would you take to improve communication between the village, the government, and its residents?
Well, it's one of the things, you know, my whole career, 43 plus years, was communication. I grew up in a journalism family, so communication is one of those things that's very important to me. And I think that from when I started as a trustee, the village has improved greatly on communication. They're getting out more and more messages more often. I think they've done a good job. I would continue that improvement. I think it's very, very important that the public be aware of what we're doing as a village. One of the things I'd like to do is add recording of the Planning and Zoning Commission, because very important things happen there on developments. Another one is a finance committee should be recorded and available to the public, because that's where decisions are made on taxes.
Yeah, I think that getting the message out is real important. I mean, when I came on the board, that was one of the things that was really a focus for me. You know, we made some changes internally. If you've noticed in the last 3 or 4 years, you know, we've got LinkedIn. If you look at our overall engagement, there's been a lot more focus. It's about getting the message out to where the people want to see it, right? You know, I'm totally opposed to any kind of videotaping of planning and zoning or any of those other commissions. Part of the reason is those are our neighbors. They're not elected. You know, they're giving up a lot of their time, and I think it will just complicate things from a video perspective. And I think they'll have a harder time getting people to volunteer. We're elected officials. We on the board, you know, that's the expected, be in the public and get blasted or slammed or videotaped. But we're elected, and we chose that. But a lot of those people on those, I think the majority would be opposed to that, and I would be opposed to it as well. And it has nothing to do with communicating with the public. All the minutes and all the records of the meetings are available online at the village website.
This question is for Tim Wilson. This is another two-part question. Mundelein recently endorsed a plan to build Ivanhoe Village, a project proposed by the Wirtz family. How do you stand on the issue of placing a tip on the Wirtz project, which will keep any tax monies flowing from the development of that project to go only to the village at the expense of local schools and other village taxing bodies for the next 25 years? And would you be open to renegotiating impact fees to the taxing bodies that are in alignment to the actual cost of the impact of the additional population?
Okay. At the end of the day, there's no tip. Okay, I don't know where you got that from. There was probably some of that floating around, some of the band rain, but there's no need for a TIF district out there. From day one, for the first house that's built, or if you look at that, there's going to be 100 acres in industrial. There's going to be roughly anywhere from whatever you read, 3,100 to 3,700 households. A lot of that's, some of that's going to be senior housing. A lot of it's going to be density, not a lot of kids. When it relates to impact fees, I mean, we've talked about it. It's public. There's state law and precedent on what we can do as it relates to impact fees. And it's also public knowledge that in the coming, I don't know when it's going to happen, that there's going to be an impact fee ordinance passed, and that's going to be in line with what you look up. It's called the Naperville ordinance. We're the only municipality in this general area that doesn't have that. What that will do, assuming it passes, will provide certainty for future boards to come.
Okay, me? All right. Trustee Wilson's right. There's no TIF. There's no talk of TIF, so you can take that off the table. He's already brought up the state law and impact fees, but one of the things I'm not sure everybody realizes is that you have municipalities with developments like Wakanda, Hawthorne Woods, Long Grove, Round Lake. There's a lot of new developments in those areas that they feed kids into District 79 and also District 120. Those villages do not collect impact fees, and they do not provide them to those school districts or library, because the library covers a lot of that area too. So, impact fees is very complicated. There's state law, and keeping in mind, other surrounding villages do not pay impact fees to our schools, where Mundelein does.
This question is for Robin Meyer. So on February 21st, Mundelein District 120 and Fremont District 79 sent a letter to community members addressing the impact of the proposed Ivanhoe Village would have on each respective school, which you briefly touched on. Mayor Lentz issued a response on behalf of the village. If you were mayor at the time, would you have responded any differently, and if so, how?
I would have handled the whole impact fee discussion quite a bit differently in that. And when it comes to the current process right now, Mayor Lentz is in charge. He is responding. He will continue to respond. As mayor myself, I would have handled the whole discussion way differently, and I don't think we would have been there where we have those kind of letters.
I'd like to know how you'd handle it. I support what we're doing. I mean, these are the negotiations that should be between the developer and the districts. At the end of the day, we're supposed to kind of be the mediator, get them together. Talks broke down. At the end of the day, my hope is that cooler heads will prevail, and some of the noise will settle down, and they'll find a way to make it more reasonable and fair for both parties. At the end of the day, there's nobody sitting at the dais at 300 Plaza Circle that wants bad schools. But we have a responsibility for all 31,000 residents in this school, or in this town, and there are some legal requirements. We could put ourselves in liable to get sued by the developer. So there's going to be more talk back and forth on this thing. But at the end of the day, I think in general, the village and our staff has handled this appropriately.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. No, I think our village and staff has done a good job in what they're doing. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I would have worked harder to make sure that there wasn't misinformation, that people were aware of the facts and more details of what was going on so that they could make an informed decision.
This next question is for Tim Wilson. So near my house, Mundelein recently added a Thornton's gas station at routes 45 and 176. Could you explain your vote on that proposal and explain what changes, if needed, if any, are seeing its impact on the village?
Yeah, I voted yes for it. I was fully supporting that project. I mean, if you look at that corner, that thing was dead for years. If you look at the traffic studies for the next 25 years, the amount of traffic, I talked earlier about converting customers. You know, there wasn't anything provided to the board of anything different. We had a buyer for the property, and that's, you know, there's property rights in this country. That was probably a good use for that property. You can agree or disagree about a gas station, but the one thing is for sure that that corner is much better looking and add more value to our community as an entryway. You know, I look at, you know, we talk a lot about vacancies. One of the things that I did when I first ran as trustee is right across the street, Greg Rasmick, that building's been in their family for, 50 years. That place was empty when I got my first sign up. I asked him, what could we do to help you get somebody in this building? And he said, clean up that corner. That Thornton cleaned up that corner.
Well, I wasn't on the board at that time, so I didn't have a vote on it, but I did question whether we needed another gas station. Part of the problem when you put a gas station on a piece of land is that there is typically somewhere in its lifespan leakage. And I don't care how many, I lived right next door to a gas station that was brand new, that had double tanks, and still leaked into my well water. So I had diesel fuel in my well water. So I don't care if you double tank them. They still at some point leak. It's on the top of a hill which runs down into a tributary going to St. Mary's. It comes from Loch Lomond going to St. Mary's over to Butler Lake and down to Des Plaines River. If there is a leak, it's underground. So there are environmental reasons, and if you take a gas station that folds, nobody will build on it. They can't build on it because of the environmental, and you have gas station property that sits vacant for years.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, you look at the technology that we have nowadays. I mean, sure, leakage is an issue. There's better technology now. And yeah, you didn't vote against it, but in the last board meeting of the term before I came on trustee, you were part of a group of citizens that turned that last meeting into a very disappointing display for the last meeting of the longest service trustee in the village of Mundelein, Ray Semple. And that was one of the things that really disappointed me. You can agree or disagree on the issues, but it's really the approach of how you handle those things.
Well, I would debate on that because there was a group of citizens that asked me for my help. They asked me, how do we handle and do different things with the village? I gave them advice, but they were totally on their own on how they handled it. And I think I was at that meeting, and I think they handled it very diplomatically, and they presented their cases very thoroughly with a report and worked on it very hard. So I would disagree with the characterization of the group. And again, people asked me to help, and I helped.
It's about leadership and how our village is viewed in the community, and that was bad.
This question is for Robin Meyer. How has the recent addition of the Rise marijuana dispensary affected the village? What, if any, changes are necessary to the village policy concerning cannabis sales and distribution?
Well, while we were the first one, we're no longer the only one, and they're all over. There have not really been any issues with the dispensary. Our police department has not found any problems with them. When they had the concert, there were a few things, and after the first year, we made some changes as a village. After the second year, there are again some issues that came up, and I believe there'll be discussions and possibly some changes before that. Initially, because we were the only one, there was a lot of tax revenue. As more and more places are being built, that revenue is decreasing and will primarily settle down to just patrons from the village of Mundelein and not pull in from other areas.
Yeah, I'm a 70s kid, so the rise really didn't bother me at first. It was a really good addition to the community from a taxing perspective. The only thing I wish I had back was, Robin talked about it, was the concert. I was a yes on the consumption lounge, but I was also a yes on the outdoor concerts. And they've been a good partner, but that would be one of the only votes that I'd want back. I wish they didn't have those outdoor concerts, but that's been very disruptive to that community over there in Derby. It's 2 nights a year, but I wish I had that one back. But Rise has been a good partner. There's another, the cannabis is going to continue to grow. So, again, outside the concerts, I have no issue with Rise, and it's been a good issue to our village.
This question is for Tim Wilson. You and your opponent had conflicting positions on the MHS referendum. Could you please explain your position and how the village can work with the high school to ensure a smooth transition during the construction project?
It's really about this, the referendum process. It's done. So it's about getting the permits and working with your construction team to make sure that they're getting everything they need as they get rolling. That was the question? Yeah, I don't think we have any issues. They've been a solid building department. Again, if you got the money, you're going to build it. You're going to build it within code. I expect them to do that. And we'll do everything in our power to continue to push those permits through and get the inspections out there in a timely fashion.
I guess did you ask about the referendum? And I guess I'm confused because why you felt that we were on opposing sides related to the referendum, because I never, ever gave a public position on the referendum at all.
So your question was yes or no on the referendum or building? I guess I didn't understand the question.
Could you explain your position and how the village can work with the high school to ensure a smooth transition during the construction?
I voted for the referendum. I grew up in this community. It's my home. I may disagree with some of the things going on in the school, but I love this place, so I was a yes. But if I'm on the board and they go through the building process, it's going to be deliberate, and our team will work with their construction folks to get the thing built.
Yeah, from a construction aspect, it's the same would apply to any type of building construction. It goes through the building department. They get their building permits. They provide all the information. It should be a smooth process. As long as you come in with everything you need, it basically goes really well. Our building department is very, very good at working with everybody to get those things through. So from a building standpoint, I don't see any issues there. And again, when it came to the referendum, I never publicly stated a position one way or another.
This next question is for Robin Meyer. Other Lake County high schools, such as Warren, Libertyville, as well as Stevenson, have stoplights controlling traffic as students exit the parking lot. Well, MHS has a police officer direct traffic twice a day. Would you support the village in adding a traffic signal on Holly Street to smooth the flow of traffic entering and exiting Mundelein High School?
On Holly Street?
No.
Okay. Traffic lights are kind of a big issue on traffic studies, depending on at that point if Holly is county or village. It's one of the things that it's a long process. Midlothian is not the village. Holly goes back and forth, and I'm not sure. Tim, do you know if Holly at that point is county or village?
Unfortunately, I think it's county.
Yeah, that's my instinct. And if it's county, while the village would want to do it, it really has to go through them.
Yeah, those type of things. What I've learned on this board, the railroad, the county, and the state, they're tough to deal with. So it's really about being collaborative, trying to drive some connectivity. No matter what side of the political equation you're on, you got to work with your county and federal officials. We've got a couple mayor's coffees where they brought up safety issues up there at Pauley and 6083 and 40 and 60, 45 and 60. Those are great, tough issues. All we can do is be an advocate for change. It does take time, but for me, it's about driving that connectivity as an elected official representing this community with those county and state officials or the decision makers, and just keep pounding that nail to try to get those things resolved.
This question is for Tim Wilson. What qualifications and experiences set you apart from your opponent in leading the village?
Yeah, I'm not into slamming people, but I'm a people person. I'm a big strength finder 2.0. That's who I am. Read that book. I mean, my big strength is I'm a woo. And that means I can pretty much talk to anybody. And that's really what it is. You're not going to see me engage people on social media. That's not my style. I'm more kind of old school, handwritten notes. Or I'm pretty easy to find. I meet with different groups of residents on a pretty consistent basis. So I try to find out whether it be Retirement Tuesday at Cherokee Printing, or with the old man at Fairhaven Auto on Saturdays. They're still complaining about the LEAP program, or it's over with, right? But for me, it's about being able to build, to collaborate with the local and state officials, being a leader that the village employees can look up to and emulate my passion for this community, and hopefully that helps them do a better job serving our community.
Yeah, I think experience, and I think experience has a lot to do with it. Considering I was on the Plan Commission in 2007, on the board 2008, I have consistently been on the board with the exception of two-year periods where I was not. And basically I've been on every committee. I've been on the CLC Chawa, the SWALCO, the ETSB. I volunteer in the community with the CERT, the MCPAA. You'll see me volunteering at community events like the bike race and the art festival. I have a lot of experience. I know what works, what doesn't work. And I think experience really matters. And I know the departments and the department heads. I get along with all of them really well. And so again, and I'm going to get the red flag. But I think experience really matters.
I have the most experience up on this stage leading people. Okay? That's what it's about. It's not just about leading the staff, but it's about building and getting the people working together.
This question is for Robin Meyer. If you were elected at the conclusion of your term in office, what would Mundelein need to look like? Or what would you need to achieve to consider your term a successful one?
Well, I don't think it goes down to just one person. It's a collaborative effort between the entire board, between the staff, and the mayor, and it's getting things done. It's working together, getting things done. And so I don't think that any one person should stand up and say, hey, look at what I did. It's look at what we did. Look at what we did together, how we move forward together. It's not about I. And, I work with a lot of people, and like I said, I've held leadership jobs for many, many years. I worked with competitors bringing a whole group of different 67 companies into, agreement and consensus. So I think that I work just as well with people as anybody else.
This question is for Tim Wilson.
Is there anything you wish you were asked that we did not mention this evening?
Wow. What I ran the 40 in back in 1975? No, you know what? One thing that's been really exciting is that we have a pretty robust community. They're not afraid to tell you what's on their mind. You may not agree with them. Just when you think you've heard everything or had every question asked, you get a new one, which is part of the passion. It's part of the gig. It's kind of one of the things I enjoy about it. The one thing that you can take from me, and if you haven't got it tonight, I'm very passionate about this community. My wife and I, we decided we're at age and place. We're not going anywhere. So, I feel I have a vested interest in where we're going in the future. And I touched earlier, I know where we've been. I grew up on the streets in this town when there were probably 10,000 people. And, I don't, I'm open to any questions. Are pretty easy to find, but I can't think of any one question that hasn't come. We've certainly got a lot of them over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is important is, I mentioned briefly that 4 generations of my family lived in this town. Right now it's only 3, but recently it was 4. And I think that what I've learned is each generation has different needs, and each generation needs to be listened to, and each generation you have to think about every single one of them when you're making decisions. Because you don't make decisions for one generation or another, you're making a decision for the whole group, for everybody, what's in the best interest of everybody.
That's one of the reasons
Tim? And so one of the things is if you contact me anytime, anywhere, you will get a response very quickly.
Yeah, I respond as well. And one of the reasons I stay connected at the high school here is because this group of people up here, that's the future, right? And you got to make them feel like they've got some skin in the game, and you've got somebody that's going to advocate for them, not only in this community, but help them as they go on to future success.
We have one final question for Robin Meyer.
And Tim Wilson.
For the last question, we would like to end the evening on a positive note and ask each of you to say one positive thing about your opponent.
Well, it was real easy because so far it's been a very clean campaign, only focusing on the issues, and I had hoped that it would stay that way, and I hope it will continue to be that way, because it's really been a pleasure to campaign with them, because we have stayed focused on issues and not made it personal, and I think that's very, very important.
You know what, you can disagree with your opponent 100%, but the one thing you have to agree is that it's not the critic that counts, it's the person that gets in the arena. So no matter how I agree or disagree with Robin, you got to give credit where credit's due. The involvement and at least taking the risk to run, to get in the game. So, again, don't agree on everything, but certainly appreciate her service to our community.
Thank you. Folks, please remember that besides wanting your vote, these candidates could use your help in the 6 weeks before the election. We would like to encourage everyone to get involved in these campaigns beyond just voting. You can ask the candidates for their emails at the conclusion of the forum for those wishing to follow up with the candidates. At this time, the candidates are invited to present 90-second closing statements, starting with Mr. Wilson.
I'm not going to need 90 seconds. I think most people know where I stand. My commitment is to the community as a whole. We're a welcoming community, and we're going to continue to be a welcoming community. I'm business friendly. It's about engagement. My ultimate goal is to create a prosperous Mundelein for everybody that lives here, and to continue to bring people in and businesses, and change that narrative that I grew up as a kid. We're there. We're going to maintain that. I'm a hard worker. I'm committed. I'm in the community. I'm everywhere. So I'm pretty easy to find. I'm pretty routine. If you've got a beef, you can always get a hold of me. But at the end of the day, I feel that the experience that I've had in my lifetime, and really some failures and challenges, really make me the best candidate to take this village as a tipping point right now to take us to the next level. I've got the drive, the vision, and the leadership skills to get it done. Thank you. Now I want your vote, April 1st.
Ms. Meyer, you now have 90 seconds to say your closing statement.
Thank you. I'm retired, and so I have, instead of sitting on some beach or traveling around some continent, I'm dedicating my time to the village of Mundelein because I have a passion to do that, because there are things that I want to do and try and make this village better. One of the things, everybody please pick up, this has all my contact information. It has some key points of what I'll do for you. My website has 8 pages of information, of policies, positions, my experience, my contacts. It has, my volunteer. It has more information than you're ever going to see on any political page. I do have, you'll see in not only what I've done from my village experience, but I've also listed my professional experience. And you will see that I have the leadership needed to take us to the next level and move on. So go out and vote. That's really what's important, is go vote. And please, thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate your attendance and giving us the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
We would like to remind you that Election Day is April 1st, and early voting begins on March 17th. For information on registering to vote, please visit www.lakecountyil.gov or contact Mr. Kuhn at tkuhn@d120.org. The deadline to register to vote is March 4th.
On behalf of the AP Government and Politics class, we'd like to thank our candidates for coming out and sharing their views tonight. We'd also like to thank the audience. We're glad to see all of you so involved in politics, especially any MHS seniors who may be casting their first vote in this election. Millions before us fought for the right to vote. Please do not take it for granted.
Thanks, and good night, everyone.